If you live in the United States, you are almost certainly going to need to use a car pretty much your entire life. But many people wonder if they should lease or buy their cars. It could be cool to drive a new car every couple of years, but how much more does that actually cost? And if you're gonna do that, is it better to buy or lease the car? Well, that's what we're gonna figure out. So in today's video, we're going to go through the pros and cons of leasing a car and figure out if you're wanting a new car every couple of years, if you'd be better off financially buying or leasing. If you want to skip to the pros and cons and go straight to the financial breakdown, I'll leave timestamps in the description right below the subscribe button. So let's hop into it. When it comes to leasing a car, there are a few pros you've got to consider. First, when you lease a car, you're driving a car when it's brand new, which means that it will most likely be the most trouble-free period of its entire ownership experience. That means you don't have to worry about expensive repairs because everything will be under warranty. In addition, because it's newer, it will most likely have all of the latest features. For example, the newest cars today are all coming with self-driving tech like Cadillac's Super Cruise system or even Hyundai's Highway Driving Assist. And if you want a car with all the latest tech, car dealers will sell you on leasing as the best option. Second, leasing allows you to drive a nicer car than you could otherwise probably afford. This is probably one of the most popular reasons for leasing a car. Lease payments are almost always significantly lower than loan payments, which can be a real draw for people. Plus, at the end of the lease period, all you have to do is drop it off, and you don't have to worry about the trade-in value or go through the hassle of selling it. Third, there's a possibility that you can use the car lease for tax deductions. If you use your car for business purposes, the IRS will allow you to deduct both the depreciation and the financing costs that are a part of each monthly payment. You can also usually do this when you buy a car though, so just make sure you talk to a tax professional about how you can do this. Those tax professionals will also tell you about how much you can deduct, because the amount you can write off may be limited, especially if you're using a luxury car. But a certified tax professional should be able to help you follow all the rules and save some money too. Fourth, when you lease a car, you're able to more easily transition into a new car every 2 or 3 years because you don't have to worry about selling the car for a certain amount. You can just turn your lease in and get a new lease without having to worry about varying levels of depreciation. Leasing mitigates risk. Sure, your car could depreciate less over 3 years than is standard, and thus you can make out with more money than expected, but it could also depreciate a lot more than expected. Leasing helps you know exactly what to expect. This certainty could be beneficial if you really want to drive something new every couple of years and you're worried about the volatility of car depreciation. Remember, this would definitely be categorized more in the want category, not a need, because you can easily drive an older car for a fraction of the price, and that's probably what most people should do anyway. But leasing is not all rainbows and sunshine. There are some significant cons as well. First, I want to stress that leasing a car is much more expensive than just buying a car and owning it for a really long time. A car is a depreciating asset, which means that the loss in value is factored into the lease payment, and the majority of the depreciation happens in the first 3 to 5 years of a car's life, aka the time that you're leasing it for. In addition, some dealers add a dealer reserve. This is essentially when the dealer marks up the interest rate, which could add thousands more dollars in profit for the dealer in the long run, which means that you'll end up losing even more money without probably even noticing it. Second, leasing a car can distract you from other financial goals. For example, if you want to save for retirement or you want to save for anything, it's not going to help you to be leasing a really expensive car. It's going to distract you from your savings. Or maybe you want to save for a down payment on a home. It's a lot easier to save $500 a month, which is the average car payment for like 10 months, and buy a used car that can get you from point A to point B, than paying thousands of dollars every single month for a fancy car lease. Trying to look rich by leasing a car can really limit how much you can save each month. Most financial professionals, if not all, would agree that investing to build wealth is far, far better than renting a fancy car. After all, it's a lot better to be wealthy than to look rich. And if you're wanting to get wealthy and learn more about the world of business and finance, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I'm doing my best to make really informative content that I hope you guys enjoy. Third, when you lease a car, you can get stuck with more extra fees than you anticipated. Car lease contracts specify a limited number of miles you can drive, and if you go over that limit, you'll have to pay an excess mileage penalty. Even if you drive under that amount, you don't get credits for those unused miles, which is kind of lame in my opinion. In addition, if you don't keep the vehicle in good condition, you'll have to pay additional wear and tear charges when your lease is up. And this definition of good condition can vary a lot from contract to contract, but usually it means left in showroom condition. And on top of all of these expenses we already talked about, you're also responsible for expendable items such as tires and brake pads and such like that, which can be really expensive in really high-end vehicles that people lease. Or let's say you decide, worst comes to worst, that you can't keep the lease. Maybe something happened in your life, you lost a loved one, you lost your job, something bad like that happened, and you just can't afford the payments anymore. Turning in the car early could cost you thousands in early termination fees and can even sometimes equal the amount of the entire lease. Either way though, however much you pay, it's a lot and it's really expensive to turn in a car early. So we've talked about the pros and cons, but what are the actual numbers? That's what you're really here for, right? Well, here are three folks that all want to buy this Mercedes-Benz C-Class. We've got Albert, Bob, and Charlie. Albert leases the C-Class, getting a new car every 3 years and pays $927 a month. Bob buys a new C-Class every 3 years, trading in the old one while financing the difference in the trade-in and the purchase price. He pays $1,700 a month for the first 3 years and about $750 a month after that. And Charlie buys a car and then just drives it for a decade. As you can see at first, both Charlie and Bob spend a lot more money than Albert does. But once Charlie pays off his car, he doesn't have to spend any more money. And even if there's some kind of major repair, say $5,000 or $10,000, he still saves around $60,000 when compared to Bob and Albert over that time period. The most interesting thing that I found from this analysis was that the question of is leasing or buying a better deal depends a lot on the time horizon you're looking at. Yeah, over 1 decade, leasing does end up costing less than continually buying new cars. But over a 30-year period, even buying a new car every couple of years actually becomes a marginally better deal than leasing. And since I would argue that you're probably going to be buying cars for at least 30 years and probably more like 40 or 50 years of your life, owning a car is definitely better than leasing it. But before we move on, there's one more person that I want to tell the story of. This is Dwayne, and he just bought a 2-year-old C-Class every 3 years instead of buying a brand new one every 3 years. Over 15 years, you'll spend half as much as if you were buying new cars or leasing. And you'd still have pretty much a brand new car the entire time with the same cool factor and reliability. Let's be honest, can you tell the difference between this C-Class and this C-Class? Which one's newer? Drop it in the comments and tell me what you think, but I'm betting you don't actually know. If you're wanting the best bang for your buck, buy a 2 or 3-year-old car, preferably right after a model refresh, and drive that. I promise your bank account will thank you. And you'll still look cool because very few people can tell the difference in a car from year to year. So in general, leasing a car is not a smart financial decision. Still, it may be something that you want to do, especially if you're wanting to drive a brand new car every couple of years, can afford the payments and possible fees, and can live with all the limits on miles and wear and tear. If that's you, just keep in mind that it's a very costly way to provide for a want of a new car, not a need for transportation. And remember, you can get 90% of the car just 2 years old for 60% of the price. Just remember that once you have a car that can reliably take you from point A to point B, anything above that is just a want, not a need. Now that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing to want a nice car. Nice cars are great, but it is something to keep in mind when you're making these financial decisions that could cost you a pretty penny over the years. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about all things business and personal finance, take a second and hit that subscribe button. It really means the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.